The sun was dipping low in the sky, casting long shadows across the empty highway. Marcus sat in his battered sedan, the engine humming like a tired animal. His day had been full of nothing but missed opportunities, bad news, and a growing sense of hopelessness. As a small business owner, he had invested everything he had into his auto repair shop, but no matter how hard he tried, the bills were always stacking up, the customers were few, and his dreams of making it big were slipping further out of reach. He stared out of the window, lost in thought. The wind whipped through the cracked window, and the radio station crackled with static. He was about to make a left turn at the crossroads when he spotted her, a woman standing at the edge of the road, her thumb outstretched. She looked like she was in her mid-30s, dressed in an oversized hoodie and ripped jeans, her face partially hidden behind a mess of wild, sun-kissed hair. Her clothes were a bit too worn for someone who looked like she could have been well off. Without hesitation, Marcus slowed down. He wasn't the type of person to leave someone stranded. Life had been tough for him, but he knew what it felt like to have nobody offer help. He rolled down the window. "Need a lift," he called out. The woman looked up, her bright green eyes filled with a mix of surprise and gratitude. "Yeah, thanks," she said, her voice soft but full of strength. She opened the door and slid into the passenger seat, her backpack resting on her lap. Marcus started the car again, his fingers drumming nervously on the steering wheel. He could tell she wasn't from around here. She had the kind of calm that only came from someone who had seen a lot of the world, but also a sense of mystery about her. "I'm Marcus," he said, trying to break the silence. "Where you headed?" She gave a nonchalant shrug. "Wherever the road takes me, I guess." There was something about her that intrigued him, but he didn't push. Instead, he focused on the road ahead. They drove in silence for a while, the sound of the tires on the asphalt the only noise between them. "Where are you coming from?" Marcus asked after a long pause. "I was living in the city," she replied, "but I had to leave. Things weren't working out." She glanced out the window, her expression turning distant. "You know how it is. Sometimes you have to get away from everything to find yourself." Marcus nodded, understanding the sentiment. His own life had felt like a constant battle, and the thought of escaping it all had crossed his mind more than once. But where would he go? What would he do? The answers always felt so far away. He ventured, "What's your name?" "Ava," she said, her lips curving into a small, sad smile. "And you?" "Marcus," he replied. "You don't look like you're from around here. What brings you to the highway?" Ava hesitated for a moment before responding. "Just needed to leave. A lot's happened, some good, some bad." She was speaking in vague terms, and Marcus couldn't help but feel that there was a lot more to her story than she was letting on. But it wasn't his business. People were entitled to their secrets after all. As they continued to drive, Marcus found himself glancing over at her more often than he intended. There was something about Ava that seemed out of place, not in a bad way, but in a way that suggested she was hiding a story far more complicated than he could have imagined. Eventually, the evening descended into night, and the only light on the road came from the headlights of Marcus's car. The drive was long, but Ava had started to open up more. She spoke of travels, of cities far away, of moments that had defined her, yet left her feeling lost. There was an air of mystery that surrounded her, like she was someone who could easily disappear into the crowd if she wanted to, and maybe that's exactly what she was trying to do. As they neared the next town, Marcus made a quick turn onto a side road. "You hungry?" he asked. "I know a place that makes the best burgers around." Ava looked at him, a quiet laugh escaping her lips. "I'm not sure I'm hungry, but I could use a break." Marcus pulled into the diner's parking lot. The place was a relic from another era, faded neon signs and checkered floors inside. As they walked in, Marcus noticed the way people looked at Ava. It was subtle, but it was there. Some of the patrons at the counter seemed to recognize her, though no one said anything. They sat at a corner booth. Ava ordered a coffee, and Marcus opted for the burger, his stomach growling in anticipation. As they ate, Marcus couldn't help but notice the glint of gold on Ava's wrist, a simple bracelet, but one that seemed out of place with the rest of her outfit. The more he observed her, the more he realized that something wasn't right. There was an air of wealth around her, something about her mannerisms, the subtle confidence she carried, that didn't quite match the image of a runaway hitchhiker. So, Marcus said, trying to get to the bottom of it, "What's the real story? Why'd you leave the city?" Ava's eyes met his, and for the first time since they'd met, there was a flash of something deeper in her gaze. "Let's just say I needed to disappear. People were looking for me." She paused, as if trying to decide how much to say. "The kind of people who don't just forget." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Sounds like you've got a lot going on." "I do," she said quietly. "More than you could know." It was then that Marcus realized that this woman, the hitchhiker he had picked up out of kindness, wasn't just any ordinary person. She was running from something, and it wasn't just a bad relationship or a life crisis. Ava was running from something much bigger than he could imagine. And whether she realized it or not, her life and his were about to become tangled in a way neither of them could predict. As they finished their meal, Ava stood up and adjusted her bag. She smiled at Marcus, a genuine smile that reached her eyes. "Thanks for the ride. I needed it more than you know." Before he could respond, she slipped out of the diner and disappeared into the night, leaving Marcus with more questions than answers. If you're new here, please subscribe to my channel Expect Stories.